I think we are a little bit late already. I heard all you want to go to the lunch at some point in time, so it's better to start now and get the show running. Yeah. So hello everybody. My name is Holger Erkens. I want to present to you the 5 reasons why European operators signed the MoU on OpenRAN. I hope everybody read the MoU before, so I don't need to test your knowledge, but I might help you a little bit later on. So from my role, I'm working for Deutsche Telekom, and besides a couple of other things, I'm taking care of ecosystem aspects in OpenRAN, and I'm coordinating, let's say, our end of the MoU activities together with the others. Yeah. So let's start with a quick question. How should your preferred RAN ecosystem look like? Are there immediate responses to that? If not, then I give you one, let's say, way to look at it, yeah? So there are 2 extremes in my view. One is stable ecosystem, which I would say we had already 2-3 years ago with a couple of vendors we had, yeah? Stable in terms of not too much to do from vendor side, everything is coming from the from operator side, everything is coming from the vendor. We have only a couple of, let's say, commercial connections we need to treat, and everything from a market share perspective is quite fixed, right? So we knew the Nokia, Ericsson, Huawei had their market share, and everything was fine. And if you look at that, I tried to show a little bit in terms of physics, right? So the ball is at the lower end of the curve, so that is the state where you need the less amount of energy. Yeah? It doesn't become more scientific than that. So we were in this state, and obviously for some reasons we didn't like it, and we would like to pull the ball up the hill. Yeah? Because when we are stable, when we have these few relationships, that's fine, but then we cannot innovate, we don't get new vendors in, we are stuck with what we have. So we want to get the ball up the hill, and that means we make everything more open, yeah? So bringing it up the hill means, in the end, you need to push it, you need to invest the energy, yeah? You need to live with many more relationships with vendors, you need to align much more, you need to set up things like the i14y lab to bring everybody together to integrate, and so on and so forth, yeah? But that means from us as operators, we need to bring also some force into it. Yeah? We need to push this ball up. And if you say this ball is the RAN market, which has approximately 35 billion per year of size, then you need to have some muscles, right? Or you need to coordinate. You need to bring people together to do it. We have that with a couple of communities, you know, TIP, ORAN Alliance, and all of those. But we as European operators, we thought there is more needed. Yeah? I found this quote, "No one can whistle a symphony, it takes a whole orchestra to play it." And I think that fits very well with the OpenRAN story. Yeah? On one side, if you want to have the whole RAN orchestra playing, you need all these different players bringing the rigs, bringing the radios, bringing the SMO and all of those things. And on the other side, you also need to have all the operators coming together and steer into the same direction. Yeah? And that brings us now to the OpenRAN MoU itself, and why we did it. Yeah? So first, couple of words on the OpenRAN MoU. We created that during 2020, and I always need to say that because you need to think, where was OpenRAN in 2020? Where is it now? Where should it be? Yeah? And we can say middle of 2020, it was much less evolved than today. I mean, we all know even today there are some hurdles to overcome, but that looked even different in 2020. We published that January 2021. And it was not a new idea, right? So there was, let's say, a very famous example for such an MoU, and that is the original MoU on GSM from 1987. And I have to give a credit here to my former colleague Uwe Michel, who came up with the idea, let's take again what was already successful 35 years ago, yeah, and renew it, yeah. At that point in time, there were no operators like today. There were more telecoms ministries and logistics ministries in these countries, right? And they came together and formed the MoU that then was the basis for the whole GSM story in the end. And if you read through, you will see that this resembles in a certain way what you see in the old MoU. Yeah? So we stick to it in a certain way. And we have the 5 signatories here. Yeah? So once again, the biggest 5 operators of Europe came together, Deutsche Telekom, Orange, Vodafone, Telefonica, and TIM, and signed the MoU. And just if you didn't read it, as I asked you before, yeah, just to give you a little bit of a notion how it looks like, on the right-hand side, this is the first page of the MoU, and just to stress out a couple of the things that are important for us, yeah. So what do we say here? We say we signed the MoU because we say that we need a strong, timely collaboration and support from both the industry and policymakers, yeah, to make OpenRAN happen in the way we wanted to have it, as an open ecosystem. We want to see the emergence and maturity of a single and consistent OpenRAN ecosystem, and that will be one of the challenges of the future, to keep it consistent and non-fragmented. Yeah? And this is also something I will address in the 5 reasons that I come to in the next pages. And the third point here, it should have a positive impact on the European telecommunication market, yeah? In terms of not only a market divided by 2, but maybe divided by many. Okay, so what are the 5 reasons then? Why the OpenRAN MoU? Let's start with very simple things. So the 5 of us needed a platform for collaboration. Yeah, collaboration means on all levels, CTOs talk to each other, we have an SVP level talking to each other, and for sure we have a couple of work groups that meet almost every week to drive forward all the topics we have running. Always under AntiTrust guidance, very important point, also very stressful point, I can tell you. Yeah, but very important, because if you come together as 5 big operators, you need to be very careful of what you're doing, what you're saying, and also what you're communicating to the industry. No fixed agenda, meaning we take a look at it all the time. We see what makes sense. We are very agile. Yeah, if we see a need in this, let's say, emerging OpenRAN ecosystem where we can support, then we will jump on it and work on it. Yeah, so we don't have a 5-year plan now to make OpenRAN successful. We very carefully look at what is there and what needs to be augmented. Reason number 4, established MNO's interests. So if you look a little bit into the OpenRAN ecosystem, what you will see a lot is companies supporting 5G, SA, greenfield deployments, yeah, so Rakuten, 1&1, Dish, all of those. But not many are ready to support, let's say, legacy, if you want to say so, traditional operators like us. Yeah, so we are in need of 5G, we are in need of 4G, we are even in need of 2G at least until 2030, maybe longer. Yeah, so all of that needs to be supported, and we need to give guidance to the ecosystem to show this, and to make sure that these guys implement the things we need. Yeah, so there needs to be a, let's say, a communication on that point. Reason number 3, getting more important. Support ecosystem alignment. So, as you saw, we need to push up this ball, the hill. Yeah, and this ball is not just a single ball, right? It's more a ball with small balls in, right? All the suppliers, the communities, the regulators, all the different voices that have a say here. And while there is a certain communication running, there's also a need for, let's say, supporting an alignment. Yeah? I had a talk yesterday with a colleague of mine, and he said, oh, OpenRAN MoU, I don't like to support that too much because it's something secret running behind doors that I cannot say, and why don't you do this in ORAN Alliance, GSMA, and all of those? He's right in a certain way, yeah, but on the other hand, if you have all these big gatherings with hundreds of people in, then it's also a bit difficult to move the needle. So what we say is we have our focused view from our MNO perspective, and we see how the ecosystem is evolving, and we see where we can give important impulses to the ecosystem. Yeah? For example, what is the role of TIP and what is the role of ORAN Alliance? Is it clearly defined or not? They are trying to align now, and these are the impulses we want to give to the ecosystem. Yeah? Guys, you need to work on that. You need to see that you don't have an overlap, that there is no competition on the community side in the ecosystem. I mean, there will always be competition on the supplier side, but we should avoid, at least on the community side, to have this competition as well. Okay. Coming to the, let's say, more tangible reasons where we also saw some output of the MoU. So, European Voice of OpenRAN. So what we do in the MoU is, besides technical work, also doing policy work. So we just have a look at how the different geographical areas perceive OpenRAN. And what we see is that in the US, there is a lot of openness to OpenRAN. In Japan, in Asia in general, there's a lot of openness towards OpenRAN. These geographical areas also see OpenRAN as an opportunity to grow their industries again, right? There was nothing in the US after Nokia, Ericsson, Huawei dominated the RAN market. Now we have Mavenir, Dell, Altiostar to a certain extent, right? So a couple of others that are bringing back RAN knowledge to the US. And the same you have in Japan, right? The Japanese government is funding NEC, Fujitsu to do trials and to work together and to augment the Japanese OpenRAN ecosystem. We don't see this at the same scale in Europe. We see in Europe a little bit more the feeling of, oh, we have something to lose. We have Nokia, we have Ericsson. We don't want to be too rude. But our view is, on one side, we have also others than those two. Yeah, new vendors that we want to see coming up and growing. And also for the traditional vendors, our view is, if they don't act, they fall behind, yeah? I mean, we saw the RIG presentation before. It obviously is not the case, yeah? But maybe we also were successful here in giving this message, yeah? So that is where we published also a report on, what we call the ecosystem report. And here we sketched the picture of the European ecosystem as it is, yeah? With all the vendors we have. And also give some recommendations to policymakers where we say, okay, if you want this ecosystem to evolve and to have new players that we can buy the components of in a couple of years, then you need to do some things. Yeah? And we use this ecosystem report as example, as a discussion basis to go through it with the European regulatory bodies to see what we can do together and how the European regulators should, in our view, bring forward the OpenRAN idea. On the other side, we take up, let's say, critical voices, and we try to, let's say, balance the view on that. Yeah, for example, there was there are critical voices on OpenRAN security running around. Right, there were blog posts, there was a BSI report, all of those things, and we picked this up and tried to, let's say, convey the right message. Yeah, how is it running? How is it in reality? How we see it? Yeah, our view, and also what do we need to do to come to a result where we are all, let's say, happy with? Yeah, that we can live with the security constraints we have. These are the two things that you see already. For sure, more to come. And this is more the policy side of what we're doing, but there's also a technical side where we are helping. And I think this is, from my perspective, are currently the most important and the most effective measure we have. Yeah? So what we did already twice now is we published technical priorities. Technical priorities is in the end requirements, right? So the reason for that is, if you have a look at the OpenRAN ecosystem, besides the typical ones, the traditional vendors, nobody has a clue what we need, right? So they all have ideas, but nobody really knows, okay, if I want to be successful in an RFQ at Deutsche Telekom, I need to deliver this and that feature. So the idea was to bring all our requirements together and say, okay, we really need, I don't know, 2G, for example, yeah, great example, or 4G. Before we started with MOU, there were vendors that told us, sorry, nobody tells us you need 4G in OpenRAN, yeah, which is entirely not true. We need it, yeah, and this was the way to convey the message. And that goes to a level that you really can, let's say, tailor your products in a way that if you come to an RFQ at Deutsche Telekom, I would say 60, 70% already done if you are compliant with these requirements. Yeah. So all technical areas are covered. So radios, O-Cloud, use cases, SMO, RIG, not, everything is in, and we're still working on it. Yeah. So the first version we published last year. And this year already a second version where we have extensive extensions to the areas where there is still a lot of movement in OpenRAN. Yeah, so on the radio side, nothing new. Yeah, but on RIG, for example, on SMO, and all the things that are still in evolution, we are constantly also evolving our requirements, and we will go further. Yeah, so at least one more release is already in the planning. You will see. And the nice part on this one is it bridges the gap also to the communities, because when we started working on that, after we published the first version of the technical priorities, Tip knocked on the door, yeah, and say, hey guys, can't we do something together here? Yeah, I think that works out quite nicely in the moment that we say, okay, these are our requirements. Tip takes it, and to be open, there was last year, Tip technical requirements 2.0, and this is a one-to-one copy of the technical priorities that we had. Yeah? So they take this as their requirements, and they make something very nice out of it. They make it the basis of their testing in the community labs, right? So TIP has or is working on a certification scheme to make it easier for us to buy the stuff in the end. Yeah, if we know it's TIP certified and it already is compliant with a lot of our requirements, then it's much less integration work on our side. Yeah, and that is then where the loop is close to the i14y lab, because it needs to take place somewhere, right? And we are constantly working on that. So maybe a few more words on this TIP relationship we have. And I stole that from a TIP report. I hope they don't mind. So in the end, what TIP does is they take our inputs, ours and others as well, and they bring this all together in their technical requirements. And the technical requirements, a selection of those technical requirements, are then the basis for a blueprint they create for testing in the integration lab, in the TIP community lab, for example. And with these requirements, then you can earn a badge or a certificate. And in this way, we are sure if somebody ran through this process, then we know already, 50% of the requirements we have done, check mark. And that then lowers the burden on our side to to get these new vendors in. And this is also the part where more coordination is necessary, where we are not today. We have the i14y lab, we have OTICs all over the world, and what is still missing is to bring a certification scheme that all comply to and that everybody's working with, so that we can say, if it was tested in Paris, we take it. If it was tested in Tokyo, we take it. And that would be the next step. So a lot of coordination and collaboration needed, and particularly on the integration part. So just to let you know how this is then integrated, our requirements into the TIP releases, just to have a short view on that. What we did in the requirements is we had different, let's say, levels of importance. We had a P0 where everybody says P0 means I need it, and a P1 where everybody says, okay, it's nice to have, And for the ones that are P0 and everybody agrees on P0, so all the 5 operators say we need exactly that. That is a priority to go into one of those releases that you see here for a blueprint of TIP. So you can say the things that are most important for us will be first implemented in a TIP blueprint and as a starting point for testing. And then TIP does, let's say, a release planning. They do every half year a new release where they include more of our requirements and also consider the requirements of the new releases. As said, we have already a release 2 out. And then these updated requirements are considered there as well. That's basically on the TIP, and many more things to come. So this is my last slide already. So I guess the Nokia presentation went a little bit longer, so I can compensate a little bit for that. So just a call for action, meaning, we did this all together. We were a little bit silent on that, so a little bit, it felt like we were in the ivory tower and never talked about it. We just pushed out the reports to the industry, and that's it. So it's good to have a chance here to also talk about it, and also to ask for all of your inputs. In the end, what we do is we all come together as the operators, but that means you have quite a tunnel view, you know what you need. But for us, it is important that we support what the suppliers need in the end, right? So if there's something that is needed, just let us know. We can consider it. Okay. And then for sure, let's do this all together. So in the end, if you have a look at 2030 as an example, will then the RAN ecosystem look like today? Just different names, but that's it? Or will it still be open and we have all this multitude of vendors? I think we can only do it together. So if there's only couple of the ones that see, okay, I can be the new single RAN vendor, and the others are left behind, then we end up where we are today. So, thank you. I hope that was not too boring. The technical topic before was maybe, okay, more interesting. You have a question?
Yes, I have a couple
Mm.
Have any other operators shown interest in joining in and being part of the and signing the MoU? And you mentioned with a small group of operators, it's easier to move the needle.
Mm.
Has the needle moved at all as a result of the publication of
Mm. Mm.
specifications? Has anything changed?
Okay, good point. So from the side of the operators, we are the 5, and no, to be very open, there were not so many more that said, okay, we need to jump on it, but that might also reflect a little bit who is in need of OpenRAN, right? So, I mean, the 5 that signed the MOU have a greater interest in OpenRAN, and I'm pretty sure if there is more interest from the others to come, we are open. Yeah, doors are open. Also to onboard more operators, that's not a problem. In terms of moving the needle, I think it's a long journey, yeah, because particularly the technical priorities that we saw that are now part of TIP as well need to be brought to the labs. And I would say this process is not in place today.
Sure, but I mean, is there any evidence that maybe some enterprise tech companies that were previously not involved in the RAN space have like come forward and said, we can do this as well, we would like to get involved, this is an area of development. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, new names, I mean, I'm not sure if I got the question in the right way. What we see is that we have, I mean, always vendor discussions, yeah, with all the new players also from the OpenRAN ecosystem, and you see plenty of players that have a certain idea what they should deliver, yeah, what they think is the right thing to do. And then we need to say, hey guys, that's not what we want, yeah, we need something completely different. One example, I'm not sure if I can, I think so, 64TRX, yeah. Usually what we deploy in Germany is 32. Yeah, and all the new vendors say we need to bring you 64TRX, just as a simple example, yeah. What we are in need of and how we can communicate that also to the ecosystem. So it's more a shaping, I would say, yeah, bringing the right impulses to the vendors, and also doing this on a constant base. Yeah? So if there is somebody new coming up, we can always direct here. Yeah? So if you, let's say, if you have nothing, then you always stop at a first, let's say, a first vendor discussion. How does it work with us? Right? A new vendor comes up and says, here we are, and we say, nice, yeah, and then you have an hour of discussion and that's it, because usually you have all the other vendors as well in the lab and you cannot take care of all of them. But here you have a way to say, okay, we already prepared these technical priorities, so you have a look. If you have questions, come back to us, no problem. Yeah, and we can have the discussion based on this already on a high technical level. I think in that aspect we saw a couple of examples and it's very helpful already.
I have a question, please. So just to understand it correctly, so the MOU group would not be developing any kind of technical specifications and then still rely on just developing white papers and work closely with STIP and ORAN Alliance.
Yeah. Absolutely. We even excluded that part. So we don't want to be seen as a standardization body or something like that, and we are not allowed to be one. Yeah. That is definitely one of the, let's say, borders that we cannot cross from an antitrust perspective. And as said, the ecosystem needs to sort itself out, right? So everybody needs to find its place, ORAN Alliance, TIP, ONF, all the vendors, and we as well, right? So we don't see ourselves as being active part of that. I mean, we all have our people in ORAN Alliance and TIP and all of the others, right? So we are in charge in a certain way. But this initiative is more to find, let's say, the right impulses we need to bring to the ecosystem.
Maybe a related question. Do you have a defined link to the standardization bodies that they take input from you and bring the level of specifications?
I mean, the answer is similar to the one before. We have our people in ORAN Alliance and TIP. It's not like we have an interface. We meet regularly with TIP on ORAN Alliance. It is more like our members in our delegates in ORAN Alliance and TIP can bring things forward that we discuss and bring these impulses as well. Yeah. Ladies first, maybe. On OpenRAN? That's a broad question. Maybe we need to have a coffee on that one. Yeah. I mean, in general, I think we see a lot of evolution, yeah, a lot of things running. I don't think all the problems are solved today, yeah. And it depends on, let's say, how much, let's say, force we keep moving, yeah, if you want to say so. What we see is that you cannot deploy it from now to tomorrow, right? Because of, or let's call it in a different way. So you have strategic targets and you have operational targets. Let's take it from that, yeah. And you have modernization cycles, yeah. I would say from an operational perspective, still OpenRAN is not there yet. I guess we can all agree on that, yeah. On the future perspective, I would say we see a lot of promising things, yeah. But it's not clear to me which will be the year when this all will materialize. That we can only, let's say, encourage the ecosystem to bring the things forward on all levels. Yes, semiconductor, AI, ML, SMO, whatever is there, yeah, to also be comparable to single RAN today, and also the most, let's say, powerful single RAN solutions of today. And then we will see. And then we need to see how we can bring this into our modernization cycles and how much we can make the strategic targets here to make OpenRAN a priority important. Yeah, in contrast to the operational targets, because there's always a connectivity test to be won or something like that, right? Not sure if that helps.
Yeah, it's similar as what I understand so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it seems like we saw something that is ongoing, but still a long way to go.
Mm.
But compared to what we have last year or in 2019, back then when we have the first time podcast, we are quite a little bit some progress so far.
Yeah, maybe one example, what I see, if you see a company like, and it's just an example, yeah, like Mavenir, who were there, they were a voice and messaging vendor a couple of years ago, right? And now they can, let's say they made a bigger part of the journey towards being a RAN vendor already, and that this is possible is quite encouraging, I would say. Mhm. Credits to Mavenir. I can do this as well with i14y, VM, Rind River or whatever. Yeah. Okay, there was a question in the background.
Seeing the collaboration among operators now,
Yeah.
if this will lead to maybe also deeper integration, maybe joint infrastructure deployment for future OpenRAN deployments, or something will not be.
You want a polite answer or? No, to be open, I don't think so. I mean, there are clear boundaries, what we can do and what we can't do together. Yeah, I mean, there's network sharing going on in a couple of countries, and maybe something will happen there, a little bit more elaborate things that are possible with OpenRAN, because, you know, today you are more in the passive network, RAN sharing mode, and maybe with OpenRAN with cloudification and with sharing of radios with open interfaces, maybe you can go a step further. Yeah, I don't know, but today I would say no plans. Mm. All right. Any more questions? If not, I hope we covered up some of the time that was lost before. Thank you.